From then on, I accelerated my efforts. It was at that time that I began sitting in meditation all night long, from dusk until dawn. While sitting one night, I started focusing inward as usual. Because it had already developed a good, strong foundation, the chitta easily entered into samadhi. So long as the chitta rested there calmly, it remained unaware of external bodily feelings. But when I withdrew from samadhi many hours later, I began to experience them in full. Eventually, my body was so racked by severe pain that I could hardly cope. The chitta was suddenly unnerved, and its good, strong foundation completely collapsed. The entire body was filled with such excruciating pain that it quivered all over. Thus began the bout of hand-to-hand combat that gave me insight into an important meditation technique. Until the unexpected appearance that night of such severe pain, I had not thought of trying to sit all night. I had never made a resolution of that kind. I was simply practicing seated meditation as I normally did. But when the pain began to overwhelm me, I thought, "Hey, what's going on here? I must make every effort to figure out this pain tonight." So I made the solemn resolve that no matter what happened, I would not get up from my seat until dawn of the next day. I was determined to investigate the nature of pain until I understood it clearly and distinctly. I would have to dig deep. But, if need be, I was willing to die in order to find out the truth about pain. Wisdom began to tackle this problem in earnest. Before I found myself cornered like that with no way out, I never imagined that wisdom could be so sharp and incisive. It went to work, relentlessly whirling around as it probed into the source of the pain with the determination of a warrior who never retreats or accepts defeat. This experience convinced me that in moments of real crisis, wisdom arises to meet the challenge. We are not fated to be ignorant forever. When truly backed into a corner, we are bound to be able to find a way to help ourselves. It happened to me that night. When I was cornered and overwhelmed by severe pain, mindfulness and wisdom just dug into the painful feelings. The pain began as hot flashes along the backs of my hands and feet, but that was really quite mild. When it arose in full force, the entire body was ablaze with pain. All the bones and the joints connecting them were like fuel feeding the fire that engulfed the body. It felt as though every bone in my body was breaking apart, as though my neck would snap and my head drop to the floor. When all parts of the body hurt at once, the pain is so intense that one doesn't know how to begin stemming the tide long enough just to breathe. This crisis left mindfulness and wisdom with no alternative but to dig down into the pain, searching for the exact spot where it felt most severe. Mindfulness and wisdom probed and investigated right where the pain was greatest, trying to isolate it so as to see it clearly. Where does this pain originate? Who suffers the pain? They asked these questions of each bodily part and found that each one of them remained in keeping with its own intrinsic nature. The skin was skin. The flesh was flesh. The tendons were tendons, and so forth. They had been so from the day of birth. Pain, on the other hand, is something that comes and goes periodically. It's not always there in the same way that flesh and skin. Ordinarily, the pain and the body appear to be all bound up together. But are they really? Focusing inward, I could see that each part of the body was a physical reality. What is real stays that way, As I searched the mass of bodily pain, I saw that one point was more severe than all the others. If pain and body are one, and all parts of the body are equally real, then why was the pain stronger in one part than in another? So I tried to separate out and isolate each aspect. At that point in the investigation, mindfulness and wisdom were indispensable. They had to sweep through the areas that hurt and then whirl around the most intense ones, always working to separate the feeling from the body. Having observed the body, they quickly shifted their attention to the pain, then to the chitta. These three, body, pain, and chitta, are the major principles in this investigation. Although the bodily pain was obviously very strong, I could see that the chitta was calm and unafflicted. No matter how much discomfort the body suffered, the chitta was not distressed or agitated. This intrigued me. Normally the kilesas join forces with pain, and this alliance causes the chitta to be disturbed by the body's suffering. This prompted wisdom to probe into the nature of the body, the nature of pain, and the nature of the chitta, until all three were perceived clearly as separate realities, each true in its own natural sphere. I saw clearly that it was the chitta that defined feeling as being painful and unpleasant. Otherwise, pain was merely a natural phenomenon that occurred. It was not an integral part of the body, nor was it intrinsic to the chitta. As soon as this principle became absolutely clear, the pain vanished in an instant. At that moment, the body was simply the body, a separate reality on its own. Pain was simply feeling. And in a flash, that feeling vanished straight into the chitta. As soon as the pain vanished into the chitta knew that the pain had disappeared. It just vanished without a trace. In addition, the entire physical body vanished from awareness. At that moment, I was not consciously aware of the body at all. Only a simple and harmonious awareness remained, alone on its own. That's all. The chitta was so exceedingly refined as to be indescribable. It simply knew. A profoundly subtle inner state of awareness pervaded. The body had completely disappeared. Although my physical form still sat in meditation, I was completely unconscious of it. The pain, too, had disappeared. No physical feelings were left at all. Only the chitta's essential knowing nature remained. All thinking had stopped. The mind was not forming a single thought. When thinking ceases, not the slightest movement disturbs the inner stillness. Unwavering, the chitta remains firmly fixed in its own solitude. Due to the power of mindfulness and wisdom, the hot, searing pain that afflicted my body had vanished completely. Even my body had disappeared from consciousness. The knowing presence existed alone, as though suspended in midair. It was totally empty, but at the same time vibrantly aware. Because the physical elements did not interact with it, the chitta had no sense that the body existed. This knowing presence was a pure and solitary awareness that was not connected to anything whatsoever. It was awesome, majestic, and truly magnificent. It was an incredibly amazing experience. The pain was completely gone. The body had disappeared. An awareness so fine and subtle that I cannot describe it was the only thing not to disappear. It simply appeared. That's all I can say. It was a truly amazing inner state of being. There was no movement, not even the slightest rippling, inside the chitta. It remained fully absorbed in stillness until enough time had elapsed. Then it stirred as it began to withdraw from samadhi. It rippled briefly and then went quiet again. This rippling happens naturally, of its own accord. It cannot be intended. Any intention brings the chitta right back to normal consciousness. When the chitta absorbed in stillness has had enough, it begins to stir. It is aware that a ripple stirs briefly and then ceases. Some moments later, it ripples briefly again, disappearing in the same instant. Gradually, the rippling becomes more and more frequent. When the chitta has converged to the very base of samadhi, it does not withdraw all at once. This was very evident to me. The chitta rippled only slightly, meaning that a sankhara formed briefly, only to disappear before it could become intelligible. Having rippled, it just vanished. Again and again it rippled and vanished, gradually increasing in frequency until my chitta eventually returned to ordinary consciousness. I then became aware of my physical presence, but the pain was still gone. Initially, I felt no pain at all, and only slowly did it begin to reappear. This experience reinforced the solid spiritual foundation in my heart with an unshakable certainty. I had realized a basic principle in contending with pain. Pain, body, and chitta are all distinctly separate phenomena. But because of a single mental defilement, delusion, they all converge into one. Delusion pervades the chitta like an insidious poison, contaminating our perceptions and distorting the truth. Pain is simply a natural phenomenon that occurs on its own. But when we grab hold of it as a burning discomfort, it immediately becomes hot, because our defining it in that way makes it hot. After a while, the pain returned, so I had to tackle it again, without retreating. I probed deep into the painful feelings, investigating them as I had done before. But this time, I could not use the same investigative techniques that I had previously used to such good effect. Techniques employed in the past were no longer relevant to the present moment. In order to keep pace with internal events as they unfolded, I needed fresh tactics, newly devised by mindfulness and wisdom, and tailor-made for present circumstances. The nature of the pain was still the same, but the tactics had to be suitable to the immediate conditions. Even though I had used them successfully once before, I could not remedy the new situation by holding on to old investigative techniques. Fresh, innovative techniques were required, ones devised in the heat of battle to deal with present moment conditions. Mindfulness and wisdom went to work anew, and before long the chitta once again converged to the very base of samadhi. During the course of that night, the chitta converged like this 3 times, but I had to engage in bouts of hand-to-hand combat each time. After the 3rd time, dawn came, bringing to a close that decisive showdown. The chitta emerged bold, exultant, and utterly fearless. Fear of death ceased that night.